3、2、1，开始。
哇，这红豆太小了吧？
不到，夹不到。
This is Eat China, where we uncover the stories of the food we eat. In this season, we're going back to basics, to the building blocks of Chinese flavor. Let's talk about chopsticks. Chopsticks are a pair of equal length sticks. You pick up food with them, or stir, separate, and flip. Over 1 billion people use chopsticks, and it all started from China. The first known pair of chopsticks are believed to be over 3,000 years old. They were found in the ruins of Yin, China's capital during the Shang dynasty.
Chopsticks were invented in North China, and the reason, according to some studies of food scholars, was that the people, because of the climate, people would like to eat food hot.
This is Professor Q. Edward Wong. He wrote a book about the history of chopsticks.
They were possibly used for other things as well, because you can, make fire, and you can also pick up other things and so on. But the spoon for a long time was considered a main utensil, the main food grain that people eat. At that time was millet. Best way to cook millet was to make it like a porridge. You best to use a spoon. Chopstick became an eating utensil possibly around the 4th century BC.
Around this time, the Chinese diet started changing. Food was getting smaller and more delicate, and dishes like noodles, dumplings, and dim sum were created. They also discovered millstones to grind seeds into oil. This meant they could stir-fry food that's chopped in smaller pieces.
You can use only chopsticks to eat both the stir-fry dishes as well as the main food, that's the rice.
Are chopsticks really good for picking up small things? That depends on how you hold them. We asked Robin, who has been an etiquette teacher for 10 years.
拿筷子的时候，我们最正确的方式就是用大拇指、食指和中指拿着一根筷子，然后另外一根筷子从我们的大拇指和食指的这个虎口处穿过来之后，用无名指去顶住它。
But what if we hold chopsticks in a different way? So we held a competition to see if Robin's way was better. The person who picks up the most red beans in a minute wins.
3、2、1，开始。
哇，这红豆太小了吧？
我的手又在抖。
立刻夹不到，夹不到。
天哪！
我感觉我觉得我的办法并不在用。
Robin was the winner.
我们不敢说一定有正确的拿法，但是有比较好的拿法。这个拿法很直接就显示在你的用餐绩效上。
This is Professor Chen Yilang. He studies how chopsticks are used.
那目前看起来握法就是有2个大的部分，一部分我们叫做钳式握法，一种叫做剪式握法。
Robin uses the traditional pincer method. Chopsticks are like a lever. The food is the load. The sticks hinge at the fulcrum between your thumb and index finger, and the effort comes from the force you use to move the sticks.
所以它的动作是3度空间的，它可以左右横移，它可以这样夹，所以它的精密度或稳定度是比较好的。
When you hold them like a pair of scissors, it makes it hard to move the chopsticks around.
那剪式握法呢？它对有一些传统的食物，它其实夹捏起来就特别的困难。例如说硬的部分，像花生、像丸子这种，因为它的开口是向外的，它会容易滑掉。它就是用虎口去做控制，就它的夹持力特别大，细微力量的控制就会比较困难。当然，因为你长期这个方式跟着你几十年之后，你不会有感觉。但是当你比较之后，你跟别人比的时候，那个差异就出来了哦。
Okay, I want to use chopsticks the right way. How long will it take to undo my muscle memory?
学习用筷子 在日本有专门的筷子学校，他们的学习的过程是蛮长的，会达到3个月这么久。因为我小时候也会背大手指头，筷子其实对于中国人来说有非常严格的礼制。其实我们把筷子直直的插在米饭当中，插在碗中，因为在中国古代只有祭祀的时候才会这样，长辈会非常忌讳这个，它是一种诅咒。不要用筷子去击打碗碟发出声响，因为在古代只有乞丐才会这样做。就是我们拿筷子去到碗里面不断的翻搅去找自己喜欢的菜，非常的不卫生。禁忌里面包含了中国文化，包含了长幼尊卑。当我去向别人去传播礼仪的时候，最早就会从筷子、从餐桌礼仪去开始讲。
The practice of using chopsticks has spread across the world, especially in Asia. Different cultures have adapted the design to their own cuisine.
Going to the chopsticks because Japanese people eat more fish, so they can separate the meat from the bones. But if you eat like a stir-fried dish in Chinese, then the pointed chopsticks are not as strong, right, as sturdy as the one that people use in China. Flat ones, Koreans prefer metal ones, but they also want to save material.
Even people from Western cultures are familiar with chopsticks, although some are still baffled by them. So why do the Chinese prefer to use chopsticks?
但是我们中国人吃饭的时候是先做一些切割才上桌嘛，所以事实上在我们中国人用餐的场合不需要太大的力量，应该是说它的精确度或是稳定度啊，恐怕对于我们的用餐是更重要的。
筷子的话，对于我们每一个中国人来说都是必不可少的一个餐具。比如说我们中国人习惯用筷子，那是跟我们与生俱来的饮食习惯和生活习惯有关。筷子是能够代表中国饮食文化的一个符号。
Up next, we'll talk about bamboo steamers, a dim sum essential. Stay tuned.
那再来几次。来，再来。